am the co-founder and chief marketing officer at Brazi Bites. We are a Portland-based natural foods company that sells Latin-inspired, delicious food products in grocery stores across the country.
Hi, Junea. It's good to be in person with you. Finally, I've seen you on stages before, and I'm excited to share the stage with you. Hey, everybody. My name is Jaime Schmidt. I am most known as the founder of the brand Schmidt's Naturals, which I started in my kitchen back in 2010. When I started Schmidt's, I did not have a big business plan in mind. I mostly was just looking to create a natural deodorant that worked well for my own use. And fast forward 7 years later, and I was selling the company to Unilever. So excited to be up here to tell the story of that journey.
So, Jaime, on that note, tell us, share with me and the audience, when did you start and why you started? Which year and the why?
Schmidt started in 2010, mostly as a hobby. I was on this personal mission to find satisfaction in my work. And so I was trying a bunch of different hobbies, exploring different avenues for work, and nothing was really speaking to me. I decided to start making body care products for fun, partly too because I was pregnant and I was being mindful of the products I was using on my skin. And so I started making lotions, shampoos, conditioners, deodorant, and started taking them to farmers markets just for fun. I had no plans of, as I said, of starting any type of business. But once I saw the potential at the markets, I understood that there was a real need in the industry for what I was doing. I think, Juno, you started your business around the same time too, right?
Yeah, exact same year. So I started Brazi Bites in 2010. And the reason why I started, for those, are you guys familiar with Brazilian cheese bread, pão de queijo? Anybody? Yeah. Maybe now, maybe not 10 years ago. But pão de queijo, or Brazilian cheese bread, is the #1 snack food in South America. It's everywhere, it's ingrained, it's part of the culture. So I grew up eating this product. And it wasn't available here in the US. I had been living here for several years. And realized that while it was available, actually, it was just sold to international markets. So you have to go on Amazon and you have to buy a dry mix and make everything at home. And I started noticing, and my husband Cameron is a co-founder. He's American. We got married in Brazil. All of our American guests came in and fell in love with the product. Started noticing there was an opportunity to bring this product to the way that we shop, at Whole Foods and New Seasons, at Costco, at Target. So that's what drove us to start the company. And we had, some principles similar the way that you founded your company, which was the product had to be delicious. It had to be made with the high quality ingredients. It has to be the best that it can possibly be. And it was going to be sold in the natural channels because those are the types of foods that we were eating and we wanted to be able to enjoy the product.
When you started making it, was it mostly for yourself and your family, or did you have plans of starting a business?
We immediately started kind of the vision. I took my family's recipe, but it was, we would make it at home in very small scale. But when we started making it, I will say it was immediately, we're let's try to make this into a business. Let's try to launch a food company to bring Brazilian cheese bread to the US market in large scale and see if it's going to resonate, right? 10 years ago, before this category did not exist, we created the category. So it was very, very challenging when we started. We didn't know if it was gonna work. Literally, it could have gone both ways. You could have put it out there and people wouldn't have connected with it and the company wouldn't exist, So we had to give that a shot.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to the situation in the market at the time. I mean, natural deodorants were a thing, but they weren't quite as prevalent as they are today. There were a couple of brands that you might see on the shelves like Tom's and Jason, but they just weren't as popular. And so it was a big risk, stepping out and not only creating a natural deodorant that was different than what was out in the market, but having the intentions of competing with conventional brands too. That was one thing I think that set my brand apart from the other naturals, is that I truly did want to take the business from these other brands like Secret and Dove and bring them over to natural and really change a whole industry and just a different way of living for customers.
So you said you started the farmer's market, right? You have this idea, you put it on the farmer's market, you start selling in front of people. So what was the next step after farmer's market?
Yeah, well, a lot of retailers were approaching my booth and asking if they could sell in their stores. And at first, I kind of laughed it off and didn't really think much of it. But then when the requests continued, I realized there is a need for this, and stores are wanting on their shelves. So yes, I'm in. So I jumped in, started doing research on how to sell wholesale, getting barcodes, creating the right kind of labels for the shelf. And after that, it didn't take long before not only were we in the stores of co-ops, but then we were in New Seasons and Whole Foods, and fast forward a few years, and we're in Target, Costco, Walmart. So there was a whole lot of learning that went on over those 7 years of getting to where we are now.
And so in the 7 years that you owned the company, you went from essentially that farmer's market to how many thousands of stores?
We were probably in about 35,000 stores when we sold.
That's amazing.
What was your retail growth like?
In frozen, we're in the frozen space. There's less stores available. We are in 10,000 stores, which is, it's great for frozen. We believe there's probably another 10,000 to go get doors. So a lot of room to grow still.
Wow. Yeah, with Schmidt's, we're still expanding internationally is our biggest goal right now, I guess. We've pretty much saturated the market here in the U.S. And so now with Unilever as our partners, we have big plans to continue to expand overseas too.
So let's switch gears and talk about manufacturing, because I think a lot of people here in the room are kind of starting companies or scaling companies and going through decisions of, should I manufacture in-house? Should I use a co-packer? What did you do when you started?
Yeah, everything was in my kitchen. I mean, I literally was on the stovetop using the dishes that I used to use to make spaghetti. We pretty much converted our kitchen into a lab, and we're no longer cooking. My family basically had given up all use of the kitchen to the purpose of this business. I also proclaimed our dining room table as my office and hung a curtain around and said, we're not eating here, we got to find another place to eat. But yeah, so yes, I started manufacturing in-house, and then within the next 4 years, we had moved 3 times, continuing to upgrade and expand on our space. So I found a place in the neighborhood that was about 5,000 square feet, and then within another year, we were at 10,000, then we moved to 30, and it all happened really, really fast. We did take on a co-packer later, mostly because we wanted to have a backup. If something were to go wrong in our factory, just having a co-packer was a peace of mind for sure. Did you guys use co-packers, or were you mostly
We also started a company manufacturing house. We first place that we went to was Kitchen Crew here in Portland. Anybody here familiar with Kitchen Crew? Shout out. A lot of amazing companies started at Kitchen Crew right when we started, so it was an amazing environment to grow a company. Jacobs and Salt, for example, Petunias, Pies. We were all like founders working together, for hours each day, building our companies in 2010, 2011. And so we started at Kitchen Crew, and then we moved to a shared space. Then we built our own manufacturing, a 5,000 square foot facility by the airport. And then eventually the company was growing and scaling so rapidly that we had to switch to a co-packing model, which, there's benefits and downsides to both. I think, from what I know about your store and my store, the similarities of starting and keeping production in-house for so long, it just allows you to stay so close to the product, and that founder obsession with the product to really, that comes through, and that's real. And that just kind of spills into all of the other parts of your company. So for us in the beginning, we kind of, the product and the concept, nobody was making this in the US. The process was so new. While in South America, it's so massive, and there's like massive manufacturing plants. Here, there was nobody. The process was so new, so there wasn't even a way to go out and get a co-packer. And it started so small as well the first couple years that we couldn't even go to a co-packer and write a co-packing agreement. Right? We didn't even know minimums, well, sign this contract, your minimums, your guarantees and such. We weren't in a position. So manufacturing in-house and staying small and staying nimble was a huge part of our success.
Yeah, I do think it's a very different approach for companies that start out, manufacturing in-house, and those that right away bring on a co-packer. There's a lot of things to be considered. Like you said, it's that attachment to your product, I think, that you'll have when you start making it directly yourself. But it's also, you take feedback so personally, right? If somebody has a problem with your product, it's like you can feel it, right? Where somebody's making it in a factory, it's just a little bit different. But there's certainly benefits. Once we did take on a co-packer, there were so many advantages to, you have consistency across all your batches. There were things like quality controls that we never knew how to institute on our own. So once we did take on our co-packer, we learned a lot from them that we were able to bring back in-house to use ourselves. But same, I can identify with the co-packers not knowing how to make the product. So there's a lot of deodorant manufacturers out there, but Schmidt's formula was so different that they just weren't able to really know how to make it. So our formula is very dense. It's powder-based. We don't use a lot of water, and so that was what was different from a lot of the other brands on the market. So it was a process. So once I took on the co-packer, there was a lot of trial and error. We were cutting the deodorant sticks in half, analyzing them, trying to figure out whether what they were doing was working or not. And it took a lot of trial and error to get it right, for sure. Yeah.
Another advantage that I see on like starting in-house and then when your business really is ready for a co-packer making that jump is it helps you be better managing the co-packer too. You set standards for your company. You know how to make it. You know how much it costs. So when a co-packer is maybe coming with a cost increase, you'll be like, no, I actually know exactly how much it costs to make this product. Or if they're struggling, you can resonate. You're like, I get that. I've been through it. So
I have a question. With your experience with co-packers, was it difficult for you to get one to commit without, saying we have this retail account on board, this retail account, or was it kind of a leap of faith thing where?
At the scale that we're in now, the agreements are very sort of legal and they're minimums, and because they're essentially, our product is still not one of them. To this day, none of our products can just be plug and play. Right, because it's different when you're creating an item that can just be plugged in into whatever line is running with the same crew. So because of our brand and the uniqueness of it, we're working with tapioca flour. It's a gluten-free. The facilities have to be gluten-free. Often the co-packers are training and hiring crews specifically for the Brazi Bites line, buying equipment for our line. And so we, unfortunately, can get away with just like, we'll tell you how it is. Well, the way we operate is like there's minimum commitments for a year. And then, if we get an influx and we, pick up more, then they usually can respond and hire more people. So, yeah. But yeah.
I think one of my biggest reservations of working with a co-packer was sharing my formula, right? I had worked so hard and tirelessly to perfect this formula that I called my own. And so once you take on a co-packer, that means sharing everything you've worked so hard to achieve. And so with Schmidt's, a couple of things we did to protect our privacy was pre-mixing some of the ingredients in-house. That way we weren't sending them our entire formula. Instead, we were sending the ingredients pre-mixed. Also, keeping our suppliers proprietary was really important to us. We weren't willing to reveal who our essential oil suppliers were, for example. So I think that's really important because once you share that with a co-packer, then someone else has it.
Absolutely. I mean, with us as well, the supply chain is proprietary, and the process of all of our products proprietary. So you can call our co-packers if you find in them. None of their names are out there. It's very hard to find. And if you call and you say you want to make Brazilian cheese bread, they're not legally allowed to do so.
How did you build out your team?
Yeah. So let's talk about team building. Yeah. So Cameron and I started the company, and for years it was just us, right?
Is that your husband?
My husband and co-founder, yeah. So we made the product ourselves. We demoed at stores on weekends, and it was a massive grind for several years. But very slowly we started building our team. I think our first hire was in production. It was to help us make the product. And then we hired packagers, so there was 2 of them. And then we also hired a demo, a brand ambassador here in Portland to take some of our demo from us. And then little by little, but we were actually kind of slow at building team. We were kind of overly lean for a long time. And then the company, the product demand started to spike, and we were looking, it was oh, there's 3 people working in this company that's just tripling in size every minute. So we kind of had to take a step back and kind of work on that. I think a lot of founders are not just amazing at team building because you just go, and you just this stuff comes your way and you're I'm just gonna do this. And you just add a couple more hours and Sunday, who cares? It's just another work day.
Well, and you're also just resistant too to like give up control, right? Because you think as the founder you can do everything and nobody else can understand. So that took some letting go on my part, and I was pushing myself. Sundays and every day was a work day, and then you hit a point where you can't really go on without help. And for me, my first hire, actually, when I realized I needed to hire somebody, I was so maxed out that once I realized it, I was like, all right, I need him like now. And so I reached out to a friend who knew somebody. I emailed the guy, and he's like, all right, I'll be there Monday. So not like the best advice for like how to hire a team, but that one fortunately ended up working well. He was with Schmidt's up until just recently. So he was one of our longest term
employees. Whoever walks in front of you with a post, you're like, you're coming
you're
in.
hired.
Yeah.
But on that note, I do want to talk a little bit about hiring, right? And like things to think about. And one of the things I like to say to other founders is when you are hiring, sometimes it's a good idea to not necessarily obsess over the resumes and the skill set and the education, but more just what can this person bring to your team that's different than what you have? What impact can they really show, that they can make on your company? I think a lot of times just growing up, we're told, the resume is so important, and here's how you lay out your skill sets. And for me, I look more at a person's energy and their sort of commitment and enthusiasm for the brand.
Yeah, I think commitment is a big one for me. I think as a founder, we work so hard, we grow our companies, and then, you trust people to bring into something that you create, that you work so hard. And so I value, just commitment and being able to stick with it as the company changes, because our teams, as the same as the founders, as they come on board, your company's changing every year. All of us here are part of the emerging brands, the high growth community, hopefully. And so it's challenging for team members to keep up, right?
How do you stay connected to your team? As you get bigger and you add on more staff. I mean, what did you do to make sure everybody felt like kind of committed to the cause and part of a bigger?
We are still a fairly small team. There's only 17 of us because now we don't run manufacturing anymore. So we have an office here in Portland with sales, marketing, and operations, and we're pretty close. Mm-hmm. I think everybody really understands the story, the mission, and our values and our principles on, ingredients and quality and making a fun and approachable brand. And so they work so closely with me and Cameron to this day that I think it's natural. We've been able to stay small. How did you do it?
Yeah, I can relate. My spouse, my husband, Chris, was there alongside me throughout my journey too. He was the executive of our marketing department, and I had him. I had my couple of early hires who, like I said, were with me for a really long time. But then we hit a point where we had to start hiring really fast. Probably about 5 years in was when we had a massive, massive growth, and I had to hire a second shift. And I think that's where the hardest time in my life was in terms of hiring and building out the team. We were maxing out the staffing companies in the area. I think our operations manager, Gabriella's in the room. She can relate. She was there alongside me, trying to keep a second shift staffed. It's not easy in manufacturing. But Chris built out our marketing team. I had a product development team that I brought on not until late 2016, so I was really driving the product development up until then. We had some brand teams and creatives that, but it was a very nimble group for sure. I mean, I wanted to keep hiring. My favorite thing about running a business, I think, is hiring and bringing in new perspectives. But when you're on a budget and being mindful of bottom line, it's not always the case.
Yeah. Totally. Okay, let's switch gears. Did you ever think about giving up? You had this journey for 7 years. It was really fast, right? But you went through a lot. You had manufacturing that you had to scale. Dealing with people and everything else, and the demand just was so massive overnight. Did you ever feel about giving up, or you were just like, go, go, go?
I don't think I ever wanted to give up necessarily, but I certainly had moments of, what am I doing? How did I get here? I remember specifically this one day driving over one of the bridges in Portland and looking out and thinking, there's this whole world of opportunity and things to do out there, and I'm just stuck grinding every day. And I want to go hiking, I want to go camping, I want to do this and that. I want to be a normal, person working a normal job. But then I was able to remind myself, this is what I wanted. I had been on this soul-searching quest for so many years to find happiness in my work. And once I had it with Schmidt's, my life changed. But there were definitely those moments of feeling trapped, and I'm in this now. Like, how do I get out, or how do I find some balance? Yeah. What about you?
there were several tough moments in the journey of building Brazi. In particular, like the first 4 years, we didn't pay ourselves for 4 years. We were so nimble and lean and slow to hire in a way that we were just doing so much work. And because we were had a husband and wife dynamic, somebody had to stay and work and to pay the bills at home. So Cameron held his job longer. I left mine first. So I remember also, during that time, we were at that shared facility in Tiger. It was kind of like after kitchen crew. We had high production people, so we were still making the product. Cameron working full-time. During the day, I would work on Brazi business stuff. Then at 4 p.m., we would meet in the kitchen and begin production ourselves. That would run usually between 4 and midnight. Then the next day, we were doing it again, and on weekends, we were going demo, for 8 hours each. And I just remember one night the production wasn't running well. Our dough is challenging, and we were probably in the kitchen until 2 a.m. And then he's driving his car, mine back to Southeast Portland. So I remember having a feeling of be like, this is hard, just, right? Not like, I don't think it was like, I'm going to stop, but it was like, wow, this is hard. We were deep in it. But the thing that kept me going, we would then go switch gears into the event deal on weekends, right? So during the week, it was just a grind, run the company, make the product. Weekends was in front of consumers. And every time we put the product in front of the consumers, the reaction to it, they would taste the bite and be like, this is amazing, or I've had this in Brazil, this is incredible, this is gluten-free. And so we were like, there's something here. Let's stick with it. We're going to have to find our way through the battle of whatever that grind was. But there was something there so there wasn't a moment of giving up, but there were several moments of like, holy, this is hard.
It really is the customers that keep you going, right? Mm-hmm. In the earlier days of the business, it was actually easier because I had a lot of face-to-face interaction. I was out at the farmers markets. I was doing street festivals every weekend, and just seeing these customers and hearing these, life-changing testimonials was huge. But then as the business gets bigger, that doesn't happen every day, and so maybe it just means hopping on Facebook and reading some people's comments, and then, you're re-inspired. Yeah. But yeah, mm-hmm. I think without the customers, it's
everything. I think both of our companies were very consumer-centric. Our obsession about the product and what they needed, and to me, that's like to this day, it's an obsession about. It's all about the consumer, their experience, what they think about the product, what they think about the consistency and the brand, and what the experience they're having.
Did you have any really crazy challenges that were just major setbacks for you?
There was a million challenges, like every day. Every week, micro challenges like you guys all experience here. I would say like one of the most memorable challenges and phases in the business was probably like early 2015. Have been in business about 4.5 years. We're still not paying ourselves. Cameron is still working his full-time job to pay the bills at home. But the company got kind of like, we were kind of stuck because it was like, hey, we need the two founders running this. But there wasn't enough money. We were already in maybe 600 stores, but not even $500,000 in revenue, which in food, that's not enough to break even, unfortunately. So, a bit of a struggle there. And so we were at a point where okay, it's time to put it all on the line. I would say that's kind of like a biggest sort of moment for Brazi Bites was that sort of first half of 2015. We made a decision that we were going to go all in, that it was okay that he was going to quit his job. We downsized our living to the best of our abilities. I sold my car, bought a van for the company. We essentially kept it bare bones to the house, and we spent the following 6 months going to every single trade show, to every event, just really pounding and just like, we're going to go and we're going to do this. We were raising money at that time, but we were fairly small and frankly horrible at raising money. Couldn't raise. We couldn't sell. We could sell the product. People were falling in love, but we couldn't convince anybody to write us a check. So we're like, okay, we're gonna put it all on the line. So for 6 months, we just it was nuts. I mean, I would say it was a massive challenge. The way we came through with that was we went to Expo West. And it was like in that part of the 6 months, we put Expo West on my personal credit card. We stayed with family in LA, and we shipped everything like the lowest cost we possibly could. And we did the show. And at the show, we put our, our best energy and like everything, brought our A game. And at that show, we met one of our lead investors, somebody that saw the potential of the brand on the show floor. So we didn't have to like do the sort of raising thing for somebody that doesn't understand the industry. We met some like key buyers. And Wegmans, for example, on the East Coast at that show. Things started to shift, and then, a couple months after that, we got a call from the producers of Shark Tank, and we got on the show. And so putting all of our energy in those 6 months really pulled us through, and we were able to grow from there. How about you?
Yeah, there were certainly a mix of challenges, both personal and professional. Some very major operational setbacks. One was we had an issue with our deodorant sticks where the dial wasn't advancing, and so the deodorant wasn't coming up. I mean, they were literally getting stuck. So you can't use a product that won't turn up. And so that was huge. We had to dig really deep into our manufacturing techniques and figure out what was happening. We had a lot of orders shipped back from us from the stores, or shipped back to us from the stores. It was scary. I mean, to put out a product that is faulty, but to be trying to keep up with the orders constantly, super stressful. On a personal level, I can certainly relate to the financial piece. I woke up one day to an email from my accountant that said I owed $300,000 in taxes, and I didn't have it. But yeah, I mean, you power through, and you just hope that your next big win is coming, and yeah.
Yeah, the manufacturing challenges when you're scaling.
Yeah.
Are pretty, pretty intense. It's like a problem that you want to have, but when you're facing it, you're like, are you kidding me? Like, you work so hard to get those orders in, and then now you can't make it at scale. And so it's a challenging time for sure.
I think too about just those days in the office where people would come to me and say, Jaime, we have a problem. And, there were often times when we would just sit in the office and stare at each other with like zero idea how to fix it. So I think that was probably one of the hardest challenges of being a leader, was just being the person that everybody goes to when something goes wrong. I think what helped, I like to talk about this, is if there is a problem, I suggest, maybe come to me with a few solutions, and then we can together choose which is the best. And that way you're empowering your employees and also, taking some of the stress off yourself. But that was a big learning opportunity for me, for sure. Yeah.
So how did growing this company and being a founder impact you personally?
Yeah. Wow, a lot of ways. I think it gave me purpose. I feel before Schmidt's, I felt a little lost. And then once I was able to build this beautiful brand that was affecting so many people's lives, I felt really inspired and driven. And I think it's lit a fire inside me that is not going out. I think I've sold the business, but I'm still involved. But I also do have time for other projects. And so from seeing the success of Schmidt's, I've started a couple other projects that I'm really proud of and excited to share. Real quick on that, one of the brands, it's Supermaker is the name of it. It's a media company that I started alongside my husband. We're actually going to be passing out a little flyer about an event that we're having next month. So when you come back from lunch, if you see a flyer on your chair, it's about that. And Chris will come up on stage later and talk a little more about what about Supermaker. What about you? I mean, how do you feel? I know you're still deeply involved in your business. I'm
still deeply involved on a day-to-day. It changed me in so many ways. Before I started Brazi, I was working in a field that I wasn't as passionate about. I love bringing this product. I feel like I also found purpose. And many of the founders here in the room, just, when you launch your company, it just feels like you're meant to be doing that. And that feeling is pretty great. On a professional level, I think growing a company at this scale in like 9 years, it pushes your capabilities, right, and your boundaries. Like you're running manufacturing, you're having to hire people, and then suddenly you're switching gears into sales and marketing, and you're scaling, and you're then raising money. And so, it's an amazing journey to me to be a founder. I enjoy every bit of it. I feel like every 3 years with Brazi, it's a total different company. And last year we did a deal with private equity. And one of the most exciting things about doing that deal for me was to see what that's like. Had never worked with private equity. I wanted to see what it was like to be a part of the company that had, sold a chunk to private equity and then potentially resell it again. What is that like? I think from a professional standpoint, that's exciting to me. And then, after we eventually will sell the company and we'll see what's next.
Well, congrats on everything you've accomplished.
You as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Do we have time for any questions or no? No? Okay.